Hey everybody, so welcome to the October webinar for the Clinical Trial Guru DSTS collaboration webinar. This is going to be about business development in the rest of 2020 and going on in 2021. And this is biz dev for sites, of course, research sites, but also could apply to job seekers too. And I just posted something on Instagram, and I'm soon going to post it on LinkedIn, where I'm talking about 2020 and how it's a great year to get started in research. The industry is absolutely booming. I just interviewed Craig Lipset, former Director of Innovations at Pfizer. He's really one of the premier thought leaders in the industry. He's extremely bullish on the next decade. So this stuff is practical, guys. It's not just, a good topic, but it's 2020. There's 3 months left, actually 2 months left now. But we're not going to experience the typical holiday slowdown because most people are already working from home, right? And many people are not going to be traveling this year for the holidays. So there's a lot of opportunities here for those willing to put in the work. And how's it going, Chris?
That's going very well, Dan. Thanks for asking.
That was a lengthy intro to introduce you.
Well, I don't think any of that had to do with me in terms of introduction, but that's okay.
Yeah, so you're on now. So what do you think about this? I mean, you tell clients all the time. We talk to clients literally every day almost. What do you have to say about this?
So I certainly would agree with, this is just a prediction. Nobody knows for sure, but I agree with that things will be busier than normal for the upcoming holiday season as things were essentially shut down for many months. So there's a lot of work to be made up for. And again, like you had said, people are now used to working at home, so they can continue doing so. That kind of is your break for the holiday season if you're in the industry, right? You go home and work. You don't have to come to the office, just go home and work.
Right, exactly right. Exactly right. So, with that being said, that's just some context for the background of this presentation. We can move on to the second slide.
Okay.
And that's BizDev for the site. So, BizDev is important for obtaining new study leads and revenue sources for your site. If you're a site, you should be on clinicaltrials.gov right now. You should be networking with other sites. You should be doing anything that you can be doing to get your name out there and to get your PIs, if you have multiple PIs, more study opportunities, because the study opportunities are out there. Chris, we work with clients on a daily basis to get them studies. What have you been seeing as far as right now in the marketplace? Like what kind of studies? Obviously, there's a lot of COVID studies, but what other kind of studies are we seeing?
Sure, there's a lot of pulmonology as well. It's just not COVID, though oftentimes it's related to COVID. But there's a lot of asthma, a lot of COPD. I would say it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with COVID, but we're seeing a lot of those studies. Seeing a lot of GI studies, and a fair uptick in CNS, particularly psychiatric. So I've seen some migraine studies as well, things of that nature, a few Alzheimer's studies. So I would say those areas are probably the busiest right now, but certainly COVID. 35% probably of the studies are COVID that I'm seeing.
Right. Okay. So lots of opportunities right now. Business development can be direct through sales or indirect through branding. You got to understand the difference between sales and branding. If you don't, you've got to check out my Patreon channel, patreon.com/DanceFair. We talk about this every single week. And every site needs a biz dev plan. And your biz dev plan can be as simple as somebody's going to scour clinicaltrials.gov for 1 hour every week and contact whoever they can on clinicaltrials.gov about potential studies they're interested in. BizDev plan could be, let's talk to the medical liaison and get your site some more opportunities that way. And if you're a job seeker, we're going to get the strategies for you guys as well towards the end. But it's the same thing. I mean, you need a BizDev plan as well. All the stuff all the stuff that we talk about with the site can also be applied to the individual job seekers. So have a plan in place. And the next slide, slide 3.
Hey, before we go on to that, I would just like to drop a little something here real quick in terms of studies. Dan and I are directly responsible for a cutaneous lupus study, finding sites, but particular sites. You have to have access to African American population. So if that's something you have a number of patients that would African American that would qualify for cutaneous lupus studies, or I mean, there's no inclusion exclusion that I'm offering, but they have that disease. Let Dan know. You don't have to be a client or anything. Just let us know.
Reach out if you see minorities. If you have a minority patient database, or any minorities in your database, reach out. Absolutely right, Chris. Okay, so anything else to add on this slide?
Business development strategies. I already moved on to the next slide.
Oh, okay. So let's see here. The next slide, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So business development strategies. The two of the most important ways for sites to engage in business development is to network or go through clinicaltrials.gov. And you essentially had already discussed this. I don't really have anything to add to that. Established sites can also benefit from using clinicaltrials.gov to find new studies. So most rely on other tactics. So, and again, you'd already discussed these things, but if you go on clinicaltrials.gov, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes there's a contact there for any study you might be interested in. And you want to look not yet recruiting studies. Look for the type of study that you would like, and then hopefully there's a contact there if you find a study that you would like, and just let that individual know that you feel you could be of great use to the study, essentially by telling them you have a large patient population for the study. And the PI is definitely interested. And then, as Dan had said before, networking with colleagues, other sites. It's always a good way to try and bring on new study opportunities for your site.
That is extremely powerful. We have people in our own networks whose sole role is to network with other sites. So we have people in our DSCS organization whose role is to go on clinicaltrials.gov and use other tools such as Zymewire that you can build on top of it. Then we have others who are just in charge of networking with other sites. And then we have people like you and I who are in charge of networking with the sponsors. So you really want to, there's never going to be too much networking, right? It's never enough, no matter how established you are, to network, because there's tons of studies out there. And it's really important, even if you're a job seeker, do the same thing. Treat it like a business. Treat your own career like a business. The next slide, slide 4, business development strategies for established sites. So established sites have an advantage over newer sites because they have the option to reach out to some of their previous sponsors. Okay, this is a huge advantage. The hardest thing in research is to get started at your first study. Once you have your first study, as long as you do a decent job of enrolling, okay, you're going to be getting more study offers coming in.
I would add a caveat to that. So don't make any huge errors. Even if you're enrolling well, if you're new to research and you make some huge errors, I don't know if they'll come back to you.
Right, yeah, of course. You can't make huge errors. Like, you can't have deviations, or I guess significant deviations. Small deviations are okay, like out of window, subject out of window for a visit, but big deviations where you're just completely ignoring the patient safety, you do not want to do that.
So, or ignoring proper etiquette. And what I mean by that is we had a client was getting a lot of studies. And then they let a sponsor know that everybody at the site shared everybody else's login information to all vendors, EDC, IVRS, everything. I don't think they got another study from anybody after that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's not just etiquette. That's a 21 CFR Part 11 violation. Right. Yeah, that's serious. And I know the client, and it's unfortunate because they were getting lots of studies too.
Yep.
But don't do things.
Don't make that error.
Yeah,
don't make that error or similar errors.
Yeah. So basically, once you're established site, take advantage. Reach out to your sphere of influence. Who are some of the previous sponsors? This is why I recommend everybody get on LinkedIn, because maybe you had a CRA from a previous study, and now that CRA works at another company. Well, maybe they have new studies they can give you, right? So this is why LinkedIn is important. Networking on LinkedIn is super important. Also, sites can reach out to sponsors and CROs from other studies in which they performed well. Doing so increases their chances of getting new studies. So yeah, take it to LinkedIn. Okay, take it to LinkedIn. If you're a CRA and if you're the site owner or the coordinator in charge of BizDev for your site, or you're the PI or whatever it is, get yourself a LinkedIn profile. Every CRA that comes into your site, connect with them on LinkedIn, because CRAs do turn over. They end up going to other companies. And you may only have their cell phone and their email address from their previous company, so you may not be able to even get a hold of them if they move. So, but with LinkedIn, it's their profile. So you have it. You're always connected.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide, slide 5. You want to take this one?
Business development strategies for established sites. Sites can also talk to medical liaisons or drug representatives during ongoing study for future study leads. Absolutely. And you may even start with a drug rep to get that medical liaison's contact. Or potentially even the drug rep knows somebody within the industry, within their organization, that is responsible for placing studies at site. So just start having a conversation with everybody you can, essentially. But medical liaison would be a good setting up studies. Sites can also leverage their PI's reputation to obtain study leads. Yeah, and that kind of falls back to the previous bullet point. And not saying as such, but kind of hinting at, the PI will prescribe your medication a whole lot more if you help them get a study within your network or your organization. You don't say that, but yeah, that's implied. Established sites get offered studies because the sponsor of CRO is familiar with the PICV. Yep. So sorry, I heard you wanting to speak up. Let's go for it.
No, yeah, I was just saying that's exactly right. The reputation of your PI, you can really leverage that into future opportunities and really get those liaisons and those sales reps on board to help you to become your allies in the process. And once you're a PI that does a decent job on a study, all the sponsors share that information. We talk about it all the time. We have a new client, maybe it's a new doctor. They do their first study well, and now all of a sudden they're getting all these other studies coming their way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the reports as well.
Yeah, so the Transcellerate initiative, where the sponsors are sharing data on site, seems to be working.
Yes, it does. Then we have a question. Do you have an account on DrugDev? Yes, you should have an account on DrugDev.
Yeah, for every PI.
Yep. All right, next slide.
Yeah, slide 6.
Where's it not going?
So you can use services like ours. Okay, we help sites generate study leads. Every single day, you'll get a list of leads that we've discovered and reached out to you on your behalf once a week. And it's your job, it's the client's job to actually follow up with those leads. But we make the initial introduction. And I like our service because this is a service that I would have bought when I started in research. And actually, even when I was continuing, I had a mature site. Matter of fact, this is why we did it. We use this service for our own sites as well to get studies. It's really affordable. It's a flat monthly fee. You don't need to work with a broker. They are available, but the way that brokers usually structure their arrangements is it's a lot less profitable for the sites if you end up going with a broker. So we kind of try to give you the best of both worlds, low cost. Obviously, it's not guaranteed like a broker. You know, with a broker, you're going to be guaranteed a study. With us, it's more like we're trying to get you studies every week. And maybe we'll get you 0 studies in a particular month, and maybe we can get you like 5 studies in a particular month, but you're paying the same. You're paying the flat fee. So if you're interested in this, just text me, 949-415-6256. It's never been a better time to start applying for studies either. There's just a huge demand for sites across the board right now. Anything else you want to add, Chris?
No, there was a question on what the monthly fee is, so I answered that. It's in the chat.
Yeah, $1,299 a month. Slide 7, how much time should go towards business development? And my answer to that would be as much as you can, right? If your site is not well established, you obviously need to dedicate more time to business development. At least one full day of business development is ideal. If you're a more established site, you should just do it like an hour a day, right? Or even an hour a week. Or you can just outsource to companies like ours, but you should still be you're still going to be following up with the leads we send you. So that's still business development.
Mm-hmm.
You always need to. The worst time to business development is when you really need a study really badly. The best time to business development is when you don't necessarily need a study because you have other studies, but you're planting future seeds for you. It's like gardening. It's like having a farm, right? You got to plant the seeds, water, cultivate. Eventually, you're going to have something to show for it. And it's the same thing with biz dev, right? It might seem like nothing's happening, but really, if you're just consistent, things are happening. You just can't see it necessarily right away.
That's certainly true. You're not going to see the results of your hard labor until months later.
That's right. That's right. Any more questions, keep them coming. We'll go to slide 8. Okay, slide 8 is how clinics can boost their business development. So we talked about the medical liaisons. We talked about the sales representatives. If you are in a private practice, or if your PI is part of a medical group or a private practice, solo practice, whatever it may be, they probably have sales reps coming to their office. You need to reach out to those sales reps. And you need to tell them that you also do research and you want to talk to their medical liaison. And that's their medical science liaison. It's usually a pharmacist. That's the bridge between sales and research and development at most of these drug companies. And that's who you want to reach out to. And that's an easy place to reach out because these people are already coming to your office, or they're at least coming to see your doctor. So that we've seen that. Chris, we just signed a new doctor, right? And he's at one of our sites, and he's already has sales reps coming through.
Yep. Within a day or two, it was almost, he had sales reps coming through.
Yeah, is he there every day now, or how often
No,
is he there?
Once or twice a week he's at the site, but he was even confused as to how the sales reps knew he was there already. Very interesting.
Yeah, how did they know he's there already?
He had no clue. He couldn't explain it, so I have no idea.
They're aware. They know. And
yeah.
They really want the...
they have a buzzing device in all the doctors.
Yeah, they want their drugs prescribed, so we've got to start talking to them about meeting with their liaisons, right?
Yep, that's right.
Because that's the easiest way to go about biz dev. You know, they're already there. They're already there to see your doctor. You might as well just initiate the conversation about research. Slide 9 is what sites should expect when applying to studies. So set your expectations low. Don't assume, and this is for job seekers too. We just interviewed Martin from our CRA Academy who just got hired. Okay?
Yep.
Set your expectations reasonably, either when you're applying for studies or applying for jobs. It's a numbers game. Right now, the market is in your favor because there's a huge demand for researchers. There's a huge demand for patients in studies because there's a lot of studies, right? So leverage the fact that the market is in your favor right now at this very moment in time. All we have is the present. So use this time to biz dev and set your expectations low and then be pleasantly surprised. So hypothetically a site, and these are under normal times, right? Hypothetically a site that is actively looking for studies and applies to 100 studies, typically the rule is you might get 10 responses to those 100 emails you send and maybe be awarded like between 1 to 5. And by awarded, it means site selection visit because it's almost the same thing. If they come to you for a SSV, it's your study to lose at that point. Now, that's under normal times. The numbers we're seeing right now, because the market is in our favor, meaning it's in the favor of the sites and it's also in the favor of the job seekers. There's a huge demand for sites and for workers in the industry. Your numbers probably going to be a little better than this. So for every 100, our last student that we just interviewed who got hired, he said for 100, he got like 50 responses. 70, he got like something like 30 or 40 responses back, so almost half responses. And then he got like 25% of that into actual interviews. So it's a lot more favorable right now, and I don't know what's the numbers like for sites right now applying for studies, Chris. Like, what if you had to guess? You know, like for 2020 and beyond.
Honestly, I don't know, but I would agree. I think it's higher. But first, I want to have a clarification here to the second bullet point. So, by apply, what does that mean to you? Is that feasibility questionnaire or just reaching out to a sponsor?
That is reaching out to study leads.
So from that 100, you probably get 10 feasibility questionnaires you complete, and then half of those may turn into a study?
Right, yeah, that's in normal times, what the numbers look like.
Okay, well, see, I don't know if it's that high in normal times. I would think it's more like maybe 1 or 2 studies. I would say this 1 to 5 is now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so either way, your expectations, at least you have a range.
Right.
You know, most people think, okay, they applied to like 10 studies, so they're going to get like 8 of them. And that's just crazy. You may not get any if it's only 10. Right? So it's a numbers game. You have to apply constantly, have this. This is like blocking and tackling in football. Like, this is the stuff that nobody really wants to do, but is extremely necessary to win, to be successful.
Yep.
So the final slide, and then we'll take questions. And keep your questions coming, guys.
Yeah, we have 2 very long questions here. So let's finish this last slide and get into that.
All right. Well, you take this one away, Chris. This is the last slide, and this is kind of what we were talking about on the previous slide.
All right, individual business development through clinicaltrials.gov. What to expect when contacting 100 people through clinicaltrials.gov? Oh, yeah, we could have just went to this slide to discuss the last one.
Right.
90 people might ignore you. 10 people might respond. 2 to 3 people will dismiss you. 1 to 3 people will say they will connect with you later. And 1 to 3 people may provide opportunities. And I think by people, Carlos, means it could be organizations. It could be people if you're seeking a job, I suppose. I mean, they're all going to be people that respond to you. But
Right.
if you're at site, these are going to be organizations, sponsors. If you're more seeking a job through clinicaltrials.gov, and it certainly can work, that approach, then it's going to be on an individual level. Results may seem minimal, but are better than other options in the industry. I don't know if that's entirely true, but it's certainly one of the more productive ways to go about business development. And I would say these numbers are relatively accurate. 90 people ignore you, 10 people respond. Yeah, just like give you a slide. Although he's diminished the responses here from 1 to 5 to 1 to 3.
Right.
Which I think in leaner times, more typical times, 1 to 3, 1 to 2, that's probably more appropriate. I do agree right now. I think it would be more like 1 to 5 out of 100. Upwards of 5, maybe even more. Did you have anything to add, or should we get into these questions?
Yeah, let's get into the questions.
All right. So when registering PI profile on the drug dev website, it is necessary to fill out a list of trials in which the PI participated. The format of the drug dev site allows us to add only trials registered on the clinicaltrial.gov site. What would you advise to expand the PI's trial list if she also performed research studies that are not listed on the clinicaltrial.gov website? So the last time I was there, and this is from Irina, the last time I was there, it didn't have to be studies listed on clinicaltrials.gov. I'm unaware of that change. Usually just ask for the name of the indication, and some numbers, how many people were enrolled, Springfield, that kind of thing. I don't know how they're limiting it to only studies on clinicaltrials.gov. That's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean,
how they would do that.
Everything should be on clinicaltrials.gov. I mean, you could literally find every study that's going on.
Why am I going to guess that this person is stating something like maybe an academic study, maybe an IIT academic of sort that may not be listed on clinicaltrials.gov?
But even those ones should be, for the most part.
Not all studies are listed there.
Right.
So I don't know how they're limiting it to studies that are listed on clinicaltrials.gov. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think something's a bit off there.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe send an email, Irina, with a little further description.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Can help you. Let's see. Then the next one. Discuss the balance between volume, getting more biz dev messages out there, versus going slower in order to write very specific notes that show you know the study of the patients, etc. Just balance between. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically they're saying, should they just use the same canned email, or should they get more specific? Obviously, if you can get more specific, it's better. It's more time consuming as well. I would say, and what works well for our clients is having a kind of a generic first reaching out. So this is what we do on behalf of our clients. And then on the follow-ups, you can take more time and research your database internally, and then highlight some of the benefits of utilizing your site. Really what the sponsors care about is your patients. So maybe having some numbers and maybe a demographic breakdown if you can, because right now sponsors are also interested in diversity in research. So that, obviously, if you can do that for every study you apply to, it's better. It's a little unrealistic if you're going for a numbers game. So I like to do more of a generic email first, and then when you follow up, okay, then you can go more for the targeted approach.
And I would just add that follow-up email can be a canned response as well. Just one or two sentences that are going to be particular to their trials. Right. Patient numbers and therapeutic area, that's obviously specific to the trial, but everything else is I would keep canned for everybody.
Exactly.
Do the same thing. All right, so when looking at the studies on clinicaltrials.gov, how to think which measures would indicate the interest of hearing from new potential sites. For example, how old the study is when the study was last updated, how long until it says it's completed. Do you follow that?
Can you read some of the parts again?
Okay, so when looking at the studies on clinicaltrials.gov, how to think which measures would indicate the interest of hearing from new potential sites. So how do you gauge, I'm assuming, how do you gauge the interest from just what you're seeing on clinicaltrials.gov in finding sites? So I would first start off by this, clinicaltrials.gov is not meant to be looking for sites. So there is no way to gauge the interest. That'd be my opinion. I know Dan may differ, but they're not looking for sites through clinicaltrials.gov.
Oh, right, yeah. So the sponsors, they're always interested in more patients for their studies. Okay, that doesn't mean they're necessarily interested in more sites, but clinicaltrials.gov is a proven way, if you do it enough, to get more study opportunities for your site. So clinicaltrials.gov is meant for patients. It's a public-facing, it's a patient-facing platform. So the idea is the patient could look for a trial in their area and join. It's not meant for sites. So there is no way, there is no direct way to gauge sponsors' interest. However, you can read between the lines. So you can look at how many patients they are planning to enroll. You can look at how many sites they already have. And you could look at when they started versus when they estimate to complete. If we're getting close to the completion, right, but you're doing the math and you think, okay, well, I don't think that these sites got this number of sites we're able to enroll, maybe you're on the right track. So oftentimes it's really in the beginning of the trial for add-on sites maybe, or if it's getting close to the estimate completion date, but they keep changing it. So they can change. You can actually, if you subscribe to this thing called ZymeWire, you can get notified of when a sponsor changes their status from not yet recruiting to recruiting, or to, obviously you'll get notified of when the enrollment's closed. But I don't think you should waste too much time with gauging interest. The more time you waste engaging interest, the less other emails you can send out. So I wouldn't spend time gauging sponsors' interest. Put it this way, if they need patients, they're interested. If they don't need patients, they're not interested. And there's really no way to tell from clinicaltrials.gov.
Yep. So again, you can guess at what you see. Like, for example, sometimes they'll say, there's going to be 100 sites, and sometimes they list the sites and say you only count 60 sites. Well, it looks like they're still looking for 40 more sites. Now, again, that can be misleading because sometimes they don't list all the sites. But, I mean, there's different ways you can guess at where they're at in the study, but none of this is for sure accurate. Again, it's meant for patients, not for study sites. Many pharma use CROs. Is there a source for which pharma uses which CRO? I have no idea. You know, Dan?
I only know that they're in the Transcelerate program. They do share vendors. I don't know of any place that shows which pharma uses which CRO because they can use multiple. I know many sponsors that use different CROs for different projects.
Yep.
So it's not like they have a exclusive relationship most of the time, right?
Some do, as you left room there for that. Some do, but you're right. Most do not. Matter of fact, I've seen many a study where they change CRO halfway through the study.
Right.
So, yeah. Next question. What is the best way to...
All this stuff, like how to gauge their interest and how to, like if there was a way to do that and how to see which CROs are being used by which sponsor. If there actually was a database like that was accessible to everybody, it would make your business development a lot more difficult because then everybody would know exactly who to apply to. The way it is right now actually works in your interest if you're willing to put the effort.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what is the best way to look for clinical trials that urgently need rescue, new sites, on the clinical trial site? This option is offered by the Zymewire software, but it costs extra money.
So there's really no way to gauge. This is kind of similar to what we said earlier. If you see that the estimated completion date keeps getting pushed back, that's a good indicator.
So
I think you can get that alert on Zymewire.
So just looking at clinicaltrials.gov, aside from Zymewire, there's no way to tell how many completion dates have been listed. You'd have to be following that study like on a daily basis, right? So when they change the completion date, you don't see the previous completion dates, do you? I've never seen that.
Yeah, no, you don't. You'd have to track it somehow. So you can have an Excel sheet and just track it. Or maybe if it's a study you really are interested in, you can track the estimated completion date. And that if that keeps getting pushed back, right, then that's a great indication that they need more rescue sites.
So me personally, if I were going to go through that trouble, I think it'd be quicker, easier, and more productive just instead of tracking this information. You're really interested in a study, just keep sending emails.
Right. Emails, LinkedIn, phone calls, try different people at the company. With LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn because you can really build a network on there.
Yep. All right. So last question. Gauging interest might be a bad way to say just which ones would be fruitful to contact, but I guess you're saying go for volume.
Go for volume because if everybody knew which ones were fruitful, then everybody would have been going after those ones.
So I will give you some points of interest. There's certain ones you can find that you want to avoid. So if they're only recruiting 10 patients, obviously that's probably not going to be productive, especially when you already have one site and it's a university. If it's a university study, that's not something of interest to you typically. The more you do this, the more you'll be able to gauge which ones are going to be more productive than others. You want a sponsored study. You don't want an academic study. You don't want a study that has few, if really any patients involved. You want studies that have lots of sites and lots of patients.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to offer in that vein, Dan.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right what you said.
All right. So there doesn't appear to be any more questions. And if not, it was a pleasant webinar.
Get out there and biz dev, guys. It's never been a better time. There's 2 months left in the year. It's going to be extremely busy 2021. We already know that. And get out there and do it. Make it happen.
Absolutely. You're welcome, Irina. Everybody that only attends the webinars, well, we look forward to speaking to you again in a month. Oh, wait, we got another question. I thought we did. Good question, but nothing's here. So, all right. Dan, anything to add?
Go out and get it. Go out and get it, guys. Everybody have a great rest of the week and start now. Do it now.
All right, everybody take care. Bye-bye. Oh, we do have one more comment. Do a webinar for international. Everybody have a good week, month, day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.